Hello friends, welcome back to Willies Wheels. I hope you're doing well. In today's episode, I want to share with you my thoughts on my time with this bike here. It's the iconic, it's the modern classic, it's the apple of everyone's eye. It's the Bonneville T120 here from Triumph. You might be able to tell by my voice, it's incredibly early. The sun is just rising above the trees there in the east. And the reason for that is because I've just got back from an incredible camping trip with some friends of mine on this bike. And Steve from Triumph is on his way to my house very shortly to swap the T120 over for a bike that's very, very different, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you a bit later. And I just thought I've had such a good time on the T120. I want to share my thoughts really quickly with you and get some lovely shots in this beautiful place. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, if you were to ask a 5-year-old and a 60-year-old to draw a motorcycle, I'd wager that they would draw one of 2 or 3 things. A Fireblade, a Harley Bagger, or this. This classic designed, iconic shape, retro twin. While this may look like a retro motorcycle, it's far from it underneath the skin. And what you get from Triumph is a brilliant, modern, up-to-spec, up-to-date motorcycle. And you're left wanting nothing really when it comes to this bike. You've got twin disc brakes up front with 2-pot discs, single at the back. You've got ABS, you've got traction control, you've got a road and rain riding mode. And the rain riding mode knocks the engine power output down to around that of the T100. Then the throttle response is a little softer. So actually, I found it's a really nice mode to be using in town where you don't really want, all the power on tap straight away. You've got digital displays on the beautiful brushed aluminium twin clocks. You've got LED running lights, twin shocks at the rear. It's fuel injected. It's pretty perfect. So let's take a look at some of the finer details and kick off some of the things I love about the T120. First thing I want to draw your attention to is this area here. Now, while this looks like a carburetor, there are no carbs on the bike. It's fuel injected. Triumph have very cleverly hidden all of the fuel injection system into this area here, so it maintains this retro feel, but you get a modern, reliable engine. The second thing I love is these pea shooter exhausts. They have the exact right aesthetic, and for this particular model of bike, they give it a slightly closed off rumble in the exhaust note. Usually people rip stock silencers off, but I think actually the sound of this bike fits the vibe and the aesthetic absolutely perfectly. When we camped out in the New Forest, Ryan was on a T120 bobber, and same engine, but a slightly different exhaust design. And when they were idling together side by side, they kind of harmonized and created this wonderful exhaust note, which had this like submarine-esque rumble with a little bit of rasp from the bobber. It was absolutely brilliant. So if I were to buy this bike, I'd probably actually leave these on because I think it sounds exactly how it looks. Quick intermission in today's video. If you're not following me over on Instagram, please go and do that. It's a lovely place to be, I promise. It's Willies_Wheels. And it's just a great community over there. Chat a lot about bikes like Triumphs, Royal Enfields, Harley Davidson, the whole shebang. So yeah, if you're not following me, I'll see you over there. The third thing that I love are these clocks. You spend a lot of time looking at these, and thankfully the fit and finish on here and across the whole bike is so excellent. It's almost perfect. You've got brushed aluminium in the middle here with the Triumph badge, and these 2 clocks, which are just such a perfect blend of old school design, that classic feel, but with modern touches. So you get a lovely sweep every time you start up. And what's really nice is you get your own rev counter and speedo. And I just think that the design of this is absolutely brilliant, even down to the font. That brings me on to the next thing that I love about this bike in particular is the amount of chrome on it. Now, while it might not be the most practical for winter riding, especially in and out of London, in the rain and slush and all that stuff, I've actually washed this bike 3 times in 2 weeks. And as you can see, the chrome details and accents on this bike are gleaming in the morning sun. It is a sight to behold, and it attracts a lot of attention as well, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what your vibe is. I think it would be a miss if you bought this particular model to get like the all black one. I personally am quite a big fan of kind of blacked out bits and bobs, and And on my own scrambler, I've blacked out lots of the chrome parts to kind of blend in and homogenize the style. But on this particular bike, chrome, it's chrome all the way. And I think for the market as well, the customer who's buying this particular Bonnie, I think it's probably going to sit in a garage and be well looked after. And it really does look great in the flesh as well. So that being said, if you're a shy person or you just don't like talking to people and the reason you ride is to be alone, maybe this isn't for you. Because whether you like it or not, people will come up and start talking and sharing their stories with you. I personally adore it. I think it's wicked. But we'll see. I think, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens when I ride the next bike that I've got from Triumph and just see what clientele and what types of people come up with that one. Now, something I mentioned in my Royal Enfield Hunter 350 review was comparing it to the riding position of a Bonneville. And in my opinion, it's the quintessential seated riding position. And this lives exactly up to that. It's a lovely, comfortable place to be. And for me, it really is that classic upright seated position that you imagine when you're sat on the sofa at home and you're, you know, riding out, arms outstretched. The proportions of this bike are absolutely brilliant. You've also got nice knee pads here, which I found particularly useful in the twisty roads. It also adds just an extra level of comfort for your legs on longer trips. You can kind of squish them into the gel pad and take some of the weight off your legs. So I'm 6'3". I'm not exactly slim, I'm 100 kilos, and I'm super comfortable on this bike, even loaded up with panniers or a pillion. There's lots of room on a longer ride to shuffle your bum back, shuffle your bum forwards. You can stand up really easily on this bike as well to stretch your legs. And the handlebar position is lovely. I'm almost completely stretched out on my arms, but you still have room to kind of lean forward and bend your arms and change the position to prevent fatigue. But this really is just very comfortable. Of course, there's nowhere to put your feet forwards, but you can have a nice stretch. And the controls as well are all really nicely positioned. They're exactly where you expect them to be. And I think that's something about this Bonnie is it's exactly what you expect. And there's like a reassurance and familiarity in that as well. It's like going to your grandparents' house. It smells the same for decades. You get the same food, same jokes, same stories. And there's a charm to that. There's like a nostalgic feeling. The grips are quite thick as well. These aren't the heated ones actually, but they're much thicker than my Scrambler and other bikes I've ridden. The Tiger is really thin. These are chunky and it kind of almost feels like you're picking up your dad's baseball bat or a cricket bat. You know, the old faithful. It's got a kind of a chubby, rugged charm to it. Being sat here in the sunshine is also a lovely place to hit subscribe. If you haven't already, I know a lot of you that are watching this video aren't subscribers. I'm very fortunate to ride a lot of different bikes and go on lots of adventures with my work. So if you're interested in more videos like this, there's plenty more to come. So do subscribe and also hit like if you like the T120. Really helps my channel. Really keen to get more and more videos out regularly for you. So let me know in the comments below if you like chrome. I also got a new helmet. So thanks to Chief for sending that out for me. This thing is great. It's probably the slimmest profile helmet I've ever worn. Doesn't pinch your head like my Bell one does. And it looks great, it's super nice. Got a nice line peak as well, so thanks, Chief.
Continuing on with the things I love about this T120 is the power, and specifically how it's delivered in second, third and fourth gear. It's so smooth and refined that it really is quite addictive. You often don't quite realise just how fast you're going because of how smooth it is. The next thing I love is the easy clutch. It's really light actually, and the gear selector goes in with a nice clunk as well. Feels very strong, mechanical, but also smooth. Another great thing about the T120 is the seat height. It's actually very accessible. You'll see here I'm easily flat-footed at the lights, so if you're shorter, it's going to be good for you. And another great thing is all of that weight is held quite low on the bike, so at high speeds you don't feel like you're toppling over or getting blown around. It's really, really solid. So if that's the good stuff, what's the not so good stuff? Because as we know, nothing is perfect. First of all, this thing is freaking heavy. It's heavier than my Scrambler. It's 230 kilos, and lugging it around is a bit of it's a ball ache really. The other thing I've noticed is in road mode, it's really choppy in first gear. So when you're going slow, particularly in and out of traffic, the way it just rolls the power in You don't notice this in other gears, and also in rain mode it's smoothed out, so I think it is just the throttle response, but it can be a little twitchy and unnerving at slow speeds in traffic.
Now this is a niche one, but I found that the colour balance of the running LED and the dipped beam is different, which for the majority of the time, who cares? But when the bike's coming past, when you're shooting tracking shots, when you're shooting stills, and you want the dip beam on, you've got two different colour balances there within the same headlight dish, and I think that looks really clumsy. Now stereotypically, this cool LED is quite a modern look, and then the warmer kind of halogen style is more retro. And or maybe you could say, you know, they're painting a story about how this is a retro bike in the modern day, but for me, I just think it looks a bit clumsy, and when you're shooting it, it always annoys me, but it's niche. So what's it been like riding the T120 for the last 2 weeks? Well, I have to admit, and I'll be honest here, at first I was a little underwhelmed. I don't think I quite understood the bike, I wasn't used to it, but in that adjustment period, I was riding in and out of London for shoots, a lot of twisty traffic and stuff, and not a lot of open roads. Having come from the Hunter, and of course my Scrambler, it just felt quite sluggish. Not by the engine, but just the turn in and the weight of the thing, quite low down. It felt a little reluctant and chubby. I kind of felt that the bike was a bit boring. And then a few days in, I took it out on the first kind of chance to stretch its legs all the way down to South Coast, and the bike started to make sense to me. The 1200cc engine is so smooth, it delivers the power in such a way that isn't aggressive or snappy. And I've got to give props to Triumph, to be fair, because they're using the same kind of base engine for all of this range, from the Thruxton, the T120, the Bobber, my Scrambler. It's all that 1200cc, and they're just tweaking it and making little changes. But the character of this thing is so different from my Scrambler, even just from the engine response, that it really started to grow on me. And it's quite gentleman-like, it's quite polite, it burbles along. And actually, when you give it a proper squeeze and you're in second or third, this thing flies. It is amazing. And then it all makes sense, it all comes together. The weight low down makes sense because you feel secure and safe on the motorway. In the turns, it feels stable, reliable. It's just at those lower speeds where it just feels a bit sluggish and a bit like, oh, you really have to like lop your weight into to get it to go over and turn. And especially out in the New Forest, doing long miles, long days in the saddle, loaded up with luggage, that's where this thing just shone for me. Like, the engine is so capable of hauling a heavy weight, and it remains smooth the whole time. When you're on the motorway in sixth, you just pop it down to fifth, you can zoom past anyone, and it doesn't do a big song and dance, it just burbles along. It just takes you to where you need to be in a smooth and easy way. And actually, I really enjoyed sitting on the motorway on this at 77 miles an hour, cruise control on. It's so stable. You need the lightest of touches to keep upright. It's an amazing bike. I can now see why the Bonneville is so popular, because it really is the do-it-all bike. You can take it long distances, you can load it up with luggage, you can nip down to the coffee shop or to the pub and look cute. You can talk to old boys about the history and heritage of Triumph. It does it all, and it does it all really well, and it does it all in such a way that every time you get on it, you feel a little bit more in love with it. And in a world where there's thousands of different bikes to choose from, I can see why a lot of people pick this one. Now, I'm sure you'll agree, this is a stunning motorcycle. Far too much chrome for me to be practical in the winter months, but they do the T120 in a lot of other flavors and variants, so I'm sure you'll find the right one for you. For 11, 12 grand, up to 12,950, I think, for the chrome edition. It's a lot of money. It's not cheap. Nothing is these days. But for the price and what you're getting, it's great value. Everything here is finished to the highest level. The whole experience, from looking at it, sitting on it, feeling it, riding it, to stopping and putting it back in the garage or the street, whatever, is impeccable. And you really do get what you pay for. Now, if you're mainly doing town riding with the occasional trip out of the city, I'd recommend checking out the T100. You're not going to miss the extra power that the T120 has, because the T100 is plenty powerful enough, just a little bit more nippy and agile in and around traffic. Where this bike really came alive for me was out in the country, riding single tracks, out in the twisties, on the motorway, loaded up with luggage and camera gear. You can't even tell it's on the back. Honestly, this thing just takes it in its stride, and it's charming and exciting along the whole way. So if you're looking for the one bike that does it all, this may be it. This may be the bike that you're looking for. It'll take you on trips. It'll take you around the world if you want it to. It will also look great outside a coffee shop or a pub. And all you have to do really is, if you get one, just leave an extra 15 minutes on your journey, because there is an endless stream of people who will come up to you and talk to you about this bike. So just make sure you factor that in. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Willies Wheels. I hope you've enjoyed this bike. If you have, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're not. There's plenty more bikes and videos like this to come, and I promise you I'll probably look, well, hopefully I'll look more awake for the next one. In the meantime, stay safe, enjoy the ride, whatever you're on, and I'll see you soon.